Ethan Parker adjusted the slightly wrinkled collar of his faded white shirt as he stood behind the polished counter of Aurora Café, one of the most expensive coffee lounges in downtown Chicago. The morning rush had already begun. The sound of steaming milk, clinking cups, and low conversations filling the air. To most customers, Ethan was just another quiet waiter moving quickly between tables. But inside him lived a constant storm of worrying, responsibility, and silent determination. Every tip mattered. Every shift meant groceries, school fees, and medicine for his 7-year-old daughter Lily, who waited for him every night in their tiny apartment with hopeful eyes and a tired smile. Since his wife passed away 3 years earlier due to sudden illness, Ethan had learned to survive without complaints. He woke before sunrise, prepared Lily's breakfast, walked her to school, and rushed straight to work. At night, he returned exhausted but grateful that he could still provide something, even if life had stripped away everything else. He didn't dream anymore. He only focused on getting through each day. That morning felt ordinary, until the cafe manager rushed over and whispered urgently that a VIP guest was arriving. The staff instantly straightened up. Tables were cleaned again, cups were polished until they shined. Everyone knew the name, Victoria Langford, the powerful CEO of Langford Technologies, a billionaire, businesswoman whose decisions influenced millions of dollars and thousands of jobs. She was known for her sharp mind, strict standards, and zero tolerance for mistakes. Ethan felt a strange tightening in his chest when he heard her name. He froze for a second, memories flashing through his mind like broken glass. A face, a hospital hallway, a signature on a document. His hands began to tremble slightly. When Victoria entered the cafe surrounded by quiet assistants, the room seemed to hold its breath. She walked confidently in a tailored navy suit, her expression calm but commanding. She sat near the window and opened her tablet, already immersed in emails. Ethan watched her from behind the counter. His heartbeat grew louder in his ears. He knew this woman, not personally, but her decision years ago had changed his life forever. He swallowed hard, struggling to breathe normally. A coworker was supposed to serve her, but suddenly the manager gestured at Ethan. "You take her order. Be perfect," he whispered. Ethan's legs felt heavy as he approached her table with a tray and notepad. His palms were sweaty. He forced a polite smile. "Good morning, ma'am. What can I get you today?" Victoria barely looked up. "Double espresso, no sugar. Almond croissant." Ethan nodded quietly and walked back toward the counter, his mind racing. This was his chance. The only chance he might ever get to make her listen. He didn't want revenge. He wanted truth. He wanted justice. He wanted her to know the human cost of a decision she probably didn't even remember making. When he returned with the coffee, his heart pounded violently. His hands tightened around the cup. His entire body screamed not to do it, but then he remembered. Lily coughing late at night because he couldn't afford better medicine. He remembered the eviction warning. He remembered his wife's hospital bed and the insurance denial letter stamped with Langford Technologies subsidiary logo. As he reached her table, Ethan tilted the cup just slightly. The hot coffee spilled across Victoria's sleeve and table. Gasps echoed through the cafe. Victoria jumped back, eyes wide in shock. "What are you doing? Are you insane?" she snapped, standing up as staff rushed over with napkins. "I'm so sorry, ma'am," Ethan said calmly, though his voice trembled. "Please, just listen to me for 1 minute before you fire me." The manager's face turned pale. "Ethan, step away now." Victoria stared at Ethan, anger blazing in her eyes. "You better have a very good reason," she said coldly. Ethan took a deep breath. 3 years ago, Langford Health Insurance denied emergency coverage for my wife's surgery. She died 2 days later. That denial came from a policy signed by you. The cafe fell into complete silence. Victoria froze. Her assistants stopped moving. The manager stood speechless. Even the coffee machine seemed quieter. "That's impossible," Victoria whispered. "I don't handle individual cases." Ethan pulled a folded paper from his pocket. It was worn and creased from being held so many times. He placed it gently on the table. Your digital signature is right there." Victoria stared at the document, her face slowly draining of color. She recognized the format. She remembered approving a mass policy change that cut emergency coverage for high-risk procedures to reduce losses. She had never thought about the individual lives affected. Her hands began to shake slightly. "My daughter was 4, Ethan continued quietly. "She watched her mother struggle to breathe because we couldn't afford private surgery. I begged the hospital. I begged the insurance office. Nobody listened." Tears filled his eyes, but he refused to let them fall. "I didn't spill coffee because I hate you," he said softly. "I spilled it because this was the only way to make you stop long enough to hear me." Victoria sat down slowly, as if her legs could no longer support her. Her confident mask cracked for the first time in years. "I never knew," she whispered. "No," Ethan replied. "You never wanted to know." Silence stretched painfully between them. Finally, Victoria looked up. "What's your name?" "Ethan Parker." "And your daughter?" "Lily?" Victoria closed her eyes briefly, breathing deeply. Guilt weighed heavily on her chest. "I can't undo what happened," she said quietly, "but I can try to make things right." She asked Ethan for his contact details and promised to investigate the policy and compensation personally. The manager wanted to fire Ethan immediately, but Victoria stopped him. "This man keeps his job," she said firmly, "and he will be promoted." Over the following weeks, Victoria personally ensured that Ethan received financial compensation, medical support for Lily, and a scholarship fund for her education. She also reversed the harmful insurance policy and publicly announced reforms to protect vulnerable families. But something deeper changed too. Victoria began visiting community clinics, listening to real people's stories. She realized leadership meant responsibility, not just profit. Ethan's life slowly transformed. He moved into a safer apartment, Lily's health improved, and for the first time in years, hope returned to their lives. One morning months later, Ethan stood again in the café, but this time in a management uniform. Lily sat at a nearby table doing her homework while waiting for him to finish his shift. Victoria entered quietly, no assistance, no pressure, just a woman who had learned humility. Their eyes met. They shared a small, respectful smile. Sometimes it takes a spilled cup of coffee to wake a sleeping conscience and remind the world that behind every policy, every signature, every number, there is a human life waiting to be seen.